Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purchase Podcast. And today, last episode of the first season, which is gonna be about Great ALoNE. Hello, Scuttlepuss.
Hello, how are you doing? I don't know if I should say V or Valentine or Snow Witch, but
Don't feminize my name, please.
I it's really hard when your name is spelled like Valentine. Like I don't know
Does
how
that
else
mean
to
I'm?
say it. It means literally lover and a holiday in English. Like
Yeah, that's why you have to say it another way.
I was Valentine, not Valentine.
Okay, whatever. I think I'm gonna be depressed because now I feel really alone because you're gonna pronounce my name the correct way.
I don't have the French like
Genome, yeah, you right now.
I don't have a single French aspect, attribute, or ancestral background.
Okay, so how does that tie into the topic of the Great ALoNE?
Maybe I'm alone because I can't say your name right. Maybe
Yes.
you're alone because I can't say your name right.
Also, yeah. I think this is gonna be a really depressive.
And maybe it's
Depressing
stupid that we have
episode.
names anyway. Because we're all alone
Yes.
together, aren't we?
Yeah, it's true, but I'm gonna still be depressed a little bit because this episode, after I've met the horse without names and all sorts of animals, the madman and the hatman and all the man, like with names and stuff from the last episode, I'm really gonna be depressed this time. So I'm alone.
Yeah.
But so Shiva is alone. So why Shiva is dancing and why? Why? What's the point?
Entertainment.
So is God just fake because it wants to entertain itself?
Well, the illusion is fake in order for God to entertain itself.
So God is real.
Yeah, God is always there, and it's all that is. It's quite literally what existence is. And non-existence, I think we've mentioned, is just that, which is non-existent. You can't have non-existent.
So everything is existing all the time.
Yes, in one way or another, in some dimension or other, manifested or unmanifested.
Well, really interesting. So can you elaborate on the topic? Why alone? Why alone when we seem not to be alone or can find ways not to?
That's true. There's this quote that I saw yesterday by Rumi, which is beyond the realm of wrongdoing and right doing, I'll be there in a field waiting.
Really interesting. So is the field alone among the other fields?
Well, I think that the word alone is really attributed to loneliness in English, which means to be like separated and a solitary.
No, alone is
Individual.
actually with solitude. Loneliness is with lonely.
Well,
One is viewed as
or do you mean isolation?
depressed.
Loneliness is isolation, and then alone is solitude. Okay,
Yeah.
my bad.
One has negative attributes, and the other one is rather neutral.
Well,
positive.
solitude is kind of is neutral. So isolation is negative, yeah. And
that really depends on how the level of perception of the person and how these words are used, which can be used interchangeably depending on. Well, yeah,
I guess the way that I can explain it is that picture a person holding a ball, for instance, If the ball is thrown, then the ball is isolated and lonely. But if you pick up the ball again, it is alone.
Who's holding the ball?
Well, in this instance, a human.
Okay.
But you could think about that as God with his toys, or not his toys, its toys.
Okay, so is the ball being picked up from a pool of balls in order to be then thrown out into wilderness?
A ball is
Or
a ball, no matter how many balls there are.
yeah, but that's my point. Like, is the ball accompanied with other balls when picked up?
I mean, for instance, you could pick up 2 balls,
Yes.
maybe even 3, but then it gets a lot to handle after that. Can't really hold that many.
You can juggle that.
You can
How is
juggle.
Shiva doing?
And that's why Shiva is dancing all the time in order to juggle all the
With his balls.
yeah, he's juggling his balls so that he could stay entertained. And that's how it all works, is it's all one great juggling act on a balance of in between the manifest and unmanifested.
Well, great. It might sound really depressing, as it is, but that's just like the first stage, that we all kind of have to go through. Like, when you really realize you're alone, you obviously get depressed because the ego is like, "What do you mean I'm alone? No, I want to be someone. I want to be something, and I want to be with others that when I love them or hate them, or whatever is the ego's business currently going on." And that's the first stage, which can last a long time or not, depending on many factors and on if you're like identified with it, with the ego.
I guess a better way that I could explain it too is that think about, since we do interact with other human beings and other animals and all that, and that's for the reason that we perceive to not be alone or even in isolation. And if you think of a puzzle, each piece would be, for instance, one form or a being, or even from a tree, a plant, an animal, bacteria, you know, whatever, animals. So each one of those is a piece to that puzzle, and
Mm-hmm.
all of those pieces are not alone. They must be connected together to create a like one image on its own, which would be ALoNE.
But where is the puzzle housed in or housed on? What
Well,
is behind, around, above?
the thing
Yeah.
is that um, that is in its own parameter. Like, the puzzle creates its own parameter in order to formulate the image. Just like an artist picks how big of a canvas they are to paint the image onto.
Mm-hmm.
Some puzzles are bigger, some puzzles are different, but every time it's a puzzle.
So
And
can we get
we're just in this puzzle right now.
can we get out of the puzzle,
I don't know.
or is really just the consciousness being stuck on just what it sees in front and can't go beyond or behind? Or
Well, that's when you come to what is, which is
Mhm.
essential reality, or the eternal Tao, which you can't name, or even the name of it doesn't even explain or point to what it is. It's only a reference.
So there's just a bunch of concepts that makes it work together. That's one piece of the puzzle
No, it's the
represents the ball.
concepts that help us understand and explain and communicate with other pieces of the whole to maybe understand what we're producing, what image or what realities being woven together by our connectiveness. And that is how separate pieces become alone, because as they formulate a togetherness or a connection, those separations between the pieces dissolve and they become one image
So we
in
do need the
unity.
concept to have something that is separated.
Yeah, I guess the best way to think about it is like if you finish a puzzle, then it's on to the next one, or you can choose to destroy the puzzle and then redo it. Like,
Mm-hmm. So by understanding this, that you're part of the puzzle, how does one get out, or does one can really get out through his own will out of the depressed state that I've
well, I guess
mentioned
what I'm
before?
suggesting is there's nowhere to go, and there never was anywhere else.
So what can that person do if they
What they
are in
can,
that state? Yeah, if they can,
they do what they can.
they do what they
And
can. So
for instance,
to
for us, what do? We lay in bed most of the time,
yeah.
and we eat fruits and make juice and talk about it.
Yeah. And yeah, from that bleeds some music.
I wake up every morning and I go to sleep. I breathe. I consume materials for energy and they're metabolized within my physical body. I
Ground you, yeah.
experience the five senses of physical reality. Uh, I have glasses, so I'm not really good at seeing, whereas you're probably better at seeing than I am. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I also
our
have glasses.
experiences in itself, we can find freedom in. Because, I mean, the puzzle itself is, not necessarily. Okay, I guess a good thing to talk about here is what's the difference between a prison and a house or a home?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very thin line. So the Stockholm syndrome or agoraphobia or, just some other things that may make someone feel like they're contained to somewhere that is not specifically physically restraining them to that spot. It could be a mental or an emotional reliance or demand, for instance.
Mm-hmm. So to get to that point, what are the key elements leading to that? The freedom
Well,
you're talking about.
I mean, like I said, agoraphobia means like the fear of leaving your house. Those
Mm-hmm.
people feel more free in their own little house than they do with the entire world around them.
Mm-hmm.
And people with Stockholm syndrome don't have freedom because they have given it in service or due to an attachment to an external force or stimuli. Usually a being. Like dogs are technically have Stockholm syndrome, and that's how we domesticated them. Is because we fed them enough and kept them safe enough that they decided to rely on us. And then they gave up their own will and service to their own species to that of ours.
Okay. So can you elaborate on how to get free? Is there a magic way to do it?
Well, one way is if you get stones thrown at you, and you're like, that's sometimes the only way something learns is like if the pain is too excruciating, and the comfort is outweighed by that pain, and it forces action, and that's when something, even though wants to stay with you, and you know that you can't do it good, and you can't make it understand, you throw and you hurt it so that it knows not to come near you. That's
So
one way.
that's still with the dog example, right?
Yeah, that's with a dog.
What about it?
One
More tangible.
example now, going into slavery and humans and all that, and the distribution of power and wealth, and understanding why some humans were considered free and individuals, while others were considered property or a resource for receiving profit, uh, is that these farmers, who you can say are the slaves or not, but they're the ones actually working and tilling the fields and producing the product that all of the community benefits from. Interestingly enough, nothing would exist if the product was not produced, in this case, food, which is the most essential item in the physical world. All the power is produced by the farmers. They have the means of production, they have the means to distribute, and they have the understanding of how to maintain and produce the product. The slave owners, or even managers in this case in capitalism, or CEOs or managers, is that the profit and capital literally means the exploitation of labor from the production of goods. So what's happening is that willingly the workers or laborers or proletariats are offering the power that they are producing willingly to that of the bourgeoisie, or the the owner or the slave master. And interestingly enough, they don't need that at all. If they cut the head off of this hydra, there will be maybe another head or two that comes up, but you cut enough heads off, the farmers will be fine without a master or a slave owner or a CEO or manager telling them how things go and how much they should make from it, because they're just scraping off the tops of whatever is made. They're not doing anything essential. They're actually completely useless. They actually just traumatize and torment and produce a negative connotation and motivation, while just reaping the benefits of it.
So that's
So,
how bad
in
karma is
order,
created.
yeah, in order to be free of that system, like I said, is that the ones with the energy and the ability to support themselves and their community by having a healthy relationship with the earth itself should understand their position and their relationship and the power they actually truly have. And once that happens, then freedom is established. Freedom is not given, and freedom is not earned. Freedom is displayed.
Okay, so how can somebody, for example, which that Stockholm feeling you've been talking about in the previous examples, can get free, even though they still can't leave the home or because of being stuck?
You find freedom in the mind, and you find freedom in the soul or being. And this
So,
is something that you'll see in people, in prisoners or prisoners of war, that withstand great deals of torment and suffering. And some even look at this entire reality as a prison. And that's why most Buddhists will sit in a cave or temple for years just meditating, to grow space, or to enable space to be held between them and their reality, for that feeling of freedom that they cannot find at a physical level.
so real freedom is found inside, and when, like, the important thing is to work on the categories or the things you can work on, and especially the inner ones.
Like, the thing is like, you do what you can.
Yeah,
So,
but you can always do something
yes.
in terms of what is inside.
Mhm.
Outside, you may, like you said, depend on something, which will restrict you from whatever it is you're attached to
Yeah.
get free from that. And
I mean, if you're hungry, you're gonna eat food, and if you're thirsty, you're gonna drink.
but
And
yeah, no, I'm not talking about like, well, freedom. You have to understand. I don't remember how it's called, that pyramid of needs, I guess. Like this,
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, that. So the first needs, which are the needs that we like the vital ones, then
Yes.
okay, yeah, we have to eat. Even though in a higher age we wouldn't need to eat, but we can't really eat right now because it would be like, if we become veterans, we will have too much energy and we will go crazy because of,
Well, that
yeah,
is
because
what
of
happened. Yeah.
because of like being like completely cutting off all the mental stuff and being just in full telepathy with other beings around you, would just go crazy. Because I mean, even like my experience, being really sensitive, kind of go crazy sometimes because of being like too compassionate with people that suffer around. So yeah, I would really go crazy. I would need that
Some
food to
view
stabilize me
sensitivity as
around me.
weakness because they can't handle what that sensitivity is alarming you to. And like you're saying, gets overwhelming because there is a lot of, I guess, strenuous.
Well, that's the first step I've talked about, like the depressed one, is like you're not kind of fighting it off, because it's more of your constitution, like what your OS, so to speak, what software are installed on your OS to navigate this experience. So it's kind of the ego fighting it off, and at some point there comes some acceptance. So at first, yeah, you might numb yourself through all sorts of ways, from pharmaceuticals to like anything, and at some point, yeah, you become, well, like a Buddha, to go from extreme to extreme.
Yeah. I mean, this great alone feeling is funny because it's also a unified feeling. You feel so connected and unified with all that is around you that it produces the effect of feeling totally alone.
Yeah, that's one of the really beautiful paradoxes of what is.
And it's because every component within all that is able to share the perspective of anything that in all that is, which means even the whole.
Can you elucidate on that?
Well, okay. I'm looking at I'm looking at a Ukrainian egg right now,
Okay.
and I'm holding it in my hand, and I'm just looking at it.
Why Ukrainian?
Because it was made in Ukraine.
Okay. How'd you get that egg?
It was in the garbage, and I'm Ukrainian, so I picked it up.
Okay.
And I feel like it was a gift from the universe. And I've been aware of the conflict going on in Ukraine and the triumph and struggle and tribulations that my ancestors and uh, culture is facing against an imperialist regime directed by a madman claiming to be a president.
Yeah. It's not the first time though. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty almost certain though that Ukraine is probably one of the like the country that has suffered the most in history, or at least past history. Like
Well,
they've
and
been harassed a lot.
Stalin, in the Great Purge killed 40 million Ukrainians,
Yeah, that's why I'm
and
saying that.
it's not acknowledged very often in the world.
No, because they don't know.
Yeah,
That's why.
because Stalin was a little more secretive about it than Hitler was. And you know what's so funny is that the Russians were the first to break Jewish people out of the internment camps, which I'm also Jewish as well. And it's funny how they can see this. The soldiers could see this horror, and I mean, they did free them, but they also would have the death walks, which meant like they survived if they could make the journey that the Russians had plotted out. And so it wasn't necessarily the best solution to freeing them. A lot of people died by being freed, and this was happening in their own country to a different ethnicity. And they're trying to do it again, but the Russians are not doing fairly well in their military operatives or operations. I mean,
So what's going on is that each part is basically fighting for freedom, or any concept of freedom.
well, I'm saying is that although I'm separated completely from this conflict in a physical sense, there's a lot of cultural and historical relevance there, relations and an ethnic and interpersonal level. And I mean, I guess what I was acknowledging is the fact that this country that is small and has been fighting this war for over a decade at this point, with little to no support from foreign aid besides Americans sending weapons and some other countries being able to send a little bit of troops there, because it's just really funny because the Russians have wasted a lot of their weaponry trying to take this country back, which they had gained their independence long ago after the USSR fell. And they're using Cold War era weaponry and machinery now because they've, I guess, tapped their resources for modern day stuff. So it's pretty much, it's happening again, is what I'm saying. And in order to break that cycle, sometimes you have to be able to stand your ground. And this happened in America too when they gained their independence. The War of 1812 is when the British would just kidnap American sailors and enlist them in their army because they were like, no, you're British. You're British colonizers. You're not Americans. America's not real. You serve the British Navy. So a whole war happened, and that was the last time that American soil was invaded. So I guess what you got to do is you got to stand for your being, and you have to be able to defend that. And there's many ways to do that. It doesn't have to be violent. Like Martin Luther King died, for instance, for to end segregation and Jim Crow laws and bring the 14th Amendment to passing in Congress in America. And he died because he was assassinated for his beliefs and his actions to unify a segregated country based on skin color, which is one of the most laughable reasons to discriminate against another that is of the same species. And so you can either unify the opposing party, or you can decimate them, or just hold them off enough that they give up.
Yeah, but meanwhile, a lot of suffering is happening. So what can you do on a rather personal, going to interpersonal level rather than a country level? Like
Well,
messing around?
I myself personally have not experienced war, and I have experienced, discrimination from authoritative institutions such as police officers, and in that situation where I was like stuck on the line, and this is actually where the nickname Stony came from. So I guess that's the little lore that's going to come out this night. It was August something 2017. It was Mayweather McGregor fight night for those who watch that, and all the gang were together, and we got really fucked up. I didn't know how to. I forgot how to talk. Is how fucked up I was. And we were walking on the road, and these headlights came into our vision. There's like 12 of us walking on the side of the road at like 1 in the morning. And we had just played a game of Chicago, and apparently it was too loud. And for those who don't know what Chicago is, it's when you hit the blunt and then you pass it, and you're not allowed to exhale the smoke until it's your next turn in the rotation. And then you have to do that until you cough and you're out, or you win. So yeah, we just finished our game and we went for a walk. And these headlights came past, and the guy in the front was just like, "This car is gonna drive by and be like, look at these high motherfuckers." And that's exactly what they did, because they pulled over, and at first there was only 2 police officers, and they said, "Okay, we're gonna say there was only 3 of you. Just go home. We got a noise complaint." And we were like, "Fair enough. We're going home. We're out of here." Like totally nonchalant. Like, yes, we totally understand. We'll go home. There's no problem here, like at all. Like, and so at first it seemed to be totally fine and dandy, but then another cop arrived and he said, "Check them all for marijuana." So we got lined up, and this is a fun time. So I'm like first in the line, and I'm wearing a very interesting outfit, like short shorts, flip flops, a crop top, long sleeve shirt, and then my really long hair. And they look at me and they say, "You look like a Stony. We're gonna call you Stony." And I responded, "I'm not a Stony." And they're like, "All right, buddy." And they grabbed me and threw me against the cop car, started patting me down. I didn't have anything on me, and I was like, "I told you I'm not a fucking Stony, bro." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, okay, we're proud of you, Stony." And they threw me back, and they went down the fucking line, and they checked all my boys, and then there was this one guy who had a backpack, and they were like, "What's in the backpack?" And he was like, "It's personal." So they were like, "No, no, it's not, because we just found a roach on you, and now we have probable cause." So I was just like, okay. So I watched this guy run in front of me, zip zoom, look back and forth, like trying to figure out what the fuck to do, and then he just ran. And then the cops started running after him. One pulls out a taser, and another cop runs in front of the guy who pulled out a taser, so he couldn't shoot my friend with the taser. And then he like looks back, throws a lighter at them, and then he just vanishes into the woods.
Wow.
So he dumped the weed in the woods, and we were out there stuck on the street for until they brought the dogs to go get our boy, and they did get him, and then we finally got to go home. But in that moment, I was really like, damn, like they could have shot us. They literally were playing with us, like it didn't fucking matter. And I was really calm and quiet, and I just sat Indian or crisscross applesauce on that side of the road, and I was just thinking, like, damn, how did I get here? And I wasn't doing anything necessarily inherently wrong. I mean, I was a little loud in a white neighborhood, I guess, smoking the devil's cabbage, or lettuce. And I felt the full force of imperialistic capitalism come down on me and my friends. My friend was arrested, but the rest of us, got off with a warning because we didn't have anything on us, and whatever. But that taught me a lot that night, and that's where my nickname Stony came from, and that's what my friends have called me ever since. And you know, that's the name that the universe gave me, and it showed me that it doesn't. People will impede on your beliefs and your livelihood because it doesn't agree with them, and it reflects back to those entities that there's a different way of being. And ego generally is fearful and engages in fear-based responses and reactions to unfamiliar stimuli, especially if they're put in an authoritative position and given power. And I mean, as long as there's hippies, there will be police, and vice versa. And is the policeman the one who's free because they're the one upholding the bylaws, or is the hippie free because they're the one who ignores them? Or is freedom not found in either of those positions, yet in a neutral or alternative positioning?
Well,
Because
like
in
we
that
said,
moment, I wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. What were you saying, V?
like we said, it's found inside, in the in between. You can't find the answer in one entity outside. It's like it's between the the relationships that there is, not the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what were you saying?
Well, I was about to talk about that, how I was crisscross applesauce on the line, freezing my fucking tuchus off because it was fucking cold. And I was wearing a boofy ass fucking costume. Like, I'm wearing shit I had never really worn at that time because I didn't have clothes apparently. And I mean, I didn't like, because I was aware. So, even though I was cripplingly intoxicated from alcohol as well, which is probably my slurred speech. And, I was just sitting there, like, just being there and just being so in shock that this was happening, and this was happening in my life and in a place where, I'd grown up, and I was treated as if I was deplorable or even, an outsider of that community, when in fact it was the town over's police that were coming to our town to harass us. They literally had nothing better to do than mess with us that night.
Oh, that's their job.
Yeah, no, I know it's their job, but the police are very notorious, and New Paltz, I'm calling them out. New Paltz, they're notorious for engaging in persecuting exclusively underage children for being under the influence because there's no actual crimes going on.
Well, yeah, you really expose all the ego and all, and well, yeah, this war and these wars and war on drugs is.
And that's why
Really...
in college, I joined and was the president of the Students for Sensible Drug Policy. That the war on drugs has done nothing but exasperate the consequences of the use of chemical compounds and the relationship that these chemical compounds have in society and the culture that's produced around them. And the media only is fuel to the fire and misinformation and spreading falsity to the minds of the people.
Well, yeah, that's.
And that
on
happens in
YouTube
every
also.
aspect.
Yeah, everywhere. Like, most YouTube videos out there, doesn't matter how official or well organized they might seem, there's always a lot of misinformation because of our time and age, and that's kind of how we learn. So it's cool, but
well, like in that moment, I felt very alone. Like,
oh yeah, but the war, it was a good lesson. Yeah,
Oh, it was a great lesson. I'm just saying, in that moment, I felt very alone, even though I had friends around me, and even what you would say an out group with me. But I felt so alone because in that experience, I felt totally in tune with that experience. Like there was no elsewhere. I didn't have the capability to think about what else was going on because of how intense the present moment was. It demanded all my attention. It demanded my full respect, and it demanded my my compassion in a formulated way because I really needed to be I needed to be at least a neutral uh, force, and not, like, so that my friends and I can get out of there and not make the cops press further charges against us.
that's what you explained by defending yourself, right?
Well, yeah, is sometimes in that moment I didn't do anything outwardly to defend myself other than say to the cops, I'm not Stony. And that's because I didn't like the way they were using it. Like it felt derogatory, and also like, of course, I was the only one they fucking picked on because everybody can smell autism from like 100 miles away.
So yeah, you really just played how the ego like acts out in so many ways.
hmm And all that playing of ego is what creates the feeling of unaloneness, or
But yeah,
elsewhere.
that's the separator, yeah.
Yeah, like in that moment, there's. I even talked to the cops after, and they were like, "Good thing you didn't run, Stony, because you're wearing flip flops." I said, "Nuh-uh. I worked down the fucking road as a lifeguard. I got lifeguard feet, bro." And I don't know if they know what that means, but what I meant is that my feet walk on hot fucking burning rocks all fucking day, and I will run in my bare feet faster than you can in your fucking shoes. So in that, like, I was acknowledging that I had the capability to run and try to achieve freedom the same way my friend who got detained did. And that's actually what led to his freedom being taken from him. Is the fact that he instinctually tried to maintain a uh, fight or flight response.
So it's really
And
interesting what you're saying here
yeah,
because that's basically how every pattern in life actually happens. Like
that
you can't get freedom through instinct
no, you
or
can't.
not through freedom, more
I'm
like
starting to find that you can't
temporary.
find true freedom through the mind either. As
Well, it
we
is what
saw
it is, yeah.
today, that I thought that it would be a great idea to sell my PlayStation 4 to get
Oh
a
yeah.
little extra income, and I couldn't sell it because the store had too many of them and didn't want it. Like that's the way capitalism works. Demand is what
Yeah.
drives value, not the item itself, not the labor that you do, not the service you provide. It's the demand of it all.
So it's another part of ego that you're just disclosing here.
Yeah.
What can we do about it? Do we just
Well,
have to suffer and escape through instincts to
like I'm
a temporary
saying
place
is
of
that
satisfaction?
in the Stony situation, I just sat through and I observed. And with mindfulness, I was able to respond rather than react. I was able to understand, even in my debilitated state, or even demented form, if you will, that I was still able to authentically express the fact that I am my own entity, and I truly believed I didn't do anything wrong, and I was holding true to that. And it didn't matter what I said, and it didn't matter what I did. I just stuck it out and I saw it through. I watched my friend I watched my friends make mistakes. I watched my friends not make mistakes. In that situation, I was able to refer back and say, okay, running's not an option. And the thing is we all could have ran too, but we all sat there. You know, we all sat in solidarity together. That's how we made it through. Because my one friend who did it on his own, tried to run and escape on his own, didn't get anywhere. He was the one who got caught. It was alone in solidarity as one cohesive unit did the rest of the tribe make it out of that. So what I'm saying is that the aloneness, the great alone, and that unification of all that is around you is the only way that we will make it through these sadistic situations and tendinations of the human experience. That a unity mindset and a collaboration will be what frees us from the shackles of suffering.
Okay, but how can you, in this case, get unified and understood when you feel like no one around you really understands you, or that everything is out of tune with your inner experience when you come to
There's one
a
guarantee
deeper
in life,
understanding?
and that's we're all gonna die.
Okay,
And
so
you pick the hill that you want to die on.
your
And
point here is to reflect on, well, to actually contemplate that.
to align your beliefs, your actions, your thoughts. It's called the Eightfold Path.
Can you elaborate?
Okay, I will. Like I said, it's like aligning your actions and your beliefs and so it's right understanding and accurate understanding of the nature of things, especially the Four Noble Truths, which are there is suffering, there are reasons why we suffer, there is a way not to suffer, and then there is the life without suffering. The right thought, which is avoiding thoughts of attachment or hatred or harmful intent. Right speech is refraining from verbal misdeeds such as lying, deceive or divisive speech, harsh speech, or senseless speech. Right action being refraining from physical misdeeds such as killing or stealing or sexual misconduct, and promoting honorable and peaceful conduct. Right livelihood is like committing to ethnical business practices such as earning your living by like producing with nature and stuff, or as opposed to selling weapons or alcohol. You know, right effort, which is like, you know, applying an authentic, um, you know, I guess motive, and then right mindfulness, which is being mindful, to be mindful or not to be mindful. And then right concentration is where you direct your awareness.
So all that is happening in the in between.
That by doing that in that moment, I was able to understand what was going on. And then I was able to think, okay, obviously trying to destroy these police officers is probably going to end with me getting shot, for instance, or me running away. So that's not going to work. I can't give or say slurs, or I can't antagonize the police officers. So I didn't. I did try to defend myself, but I realized that my speech was senseless, so I stopped talking to them. And then after that, my right action was by me maintaining a peaceful composure in a calm state. I mean, my right livelihood is the fact that, I mean, I'm a lifeguard. I save lives. I know CPR. My job is to protect and serve the people just as they are. My effort was to maintain the the cohesive unit of my friend group from being, abducted by a malicious group. And then mindfulness was making sure that I was present and I was aware of what was going on, and I made sure to concentrate on what was going on around me and point my awareness to what's happening and the feelings that I was processing. And how actually intoxicated I was, and how that limited my ability to even make a better decision than sit there and look pretty.
So the in between, which is what you just explained, and the other example of the other extreme of running away, trying to find the freedom or the escape through actually acting. So because before you said in this episode that you have to act in a correct way, but you didn't seem to really have acted, like the example you gave, and also
Well, inaction is as much of an action as action is.
okay, so that's word to actually highlight. And the other thing is, do you think that you acted that way because of pressure? Like, what would have happened if you had the actual stuff on you in your backpack?
Well,
Right.
I probably would have gotten arrested. I probably would have
Okay.
acted pretty similar to
the guy whose name I won't say.
I mean,
So is that because of the pressure of the level of intoxication you were on, or is that because of other factors such as what's the Indian word for it? Samskara, I think. Right.
samsara?
Samsara, yeah.
That is the life without suffering, yes. Well, I understood that I only had one decision as how I acted in this set and setting.
But how and why do you think you acted this way? Like, is it because
Well,
just of
because my
a
intent
real?
was to remain free and healthy, and the purpose behind that was to live, my life. And I knew that the negative consequences of being incarcerated would probably not fare too well for my
Yeah,
future
but where
as an individual.
where do you think that those actual thoughts come from? Did you just create them and be like, okay, I think it's
Well,
not
as I
good?
was trying to acknowledge is that thinking was like really hard for me already. So, like as an example, I was trying to talk to the guy next to me, and I kept trying to talk to him, and every time I thought I said something to him, apparently it was just my thoughts, and I couldn't distinguish my talking and my thoughts from one another. And I stopped thinking once they threw me against a cop car and searched me. I just kind of was like, all right, I can't do anything. So I guess I was just fully meditative.
So it is because of the intoxication only.
No, I also the pressurized situation also kind of, demanded that I was empty
So that's
and
the question I'm
open.
asking you. What if you weren't as pressurized or you weren't as intoxicated? You would have run away.
Uh, I don't think so.
Why?
I didn't feel like running once.
Why? Is it because of grace?
Probably because one part was that I was intoxicated, and
Yeah, but beyond
I'm not
that,
very good at. Okay, beyond that, I didn't see any positive outcomes to come from
but
running
why didn't you see that? Like, why?
because I understood that I understood that there was a lot more cops, um, and that
Yeah, but out of such a
it's that,
pressurized
and I
environment.
also understood. I also understood in that moment I hadn't done anything wrong. I was not that they kept us illegally there because they had no real right to keep us there. What I had not committed a crime. I was free and abstained from any wrongdoing. All I had to do was be patient. That's what I knew, and I trusted that. And I had faith that I had to just maintain a calm composure.
But my question is, to go beyond all this, and like, why in the cycle of life and death and rebirth? Like, why were you there? in this position and not in an instinctual position?
Well, I wasn't operating on fear-based programming.
Why?
Why? Well, because I'm not afraid of uh, dying, for instance. I'm not afraid of. I am afraid of being incarcerated, and that's why I was really careful, because I'd rather be dead than incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
So I really was patient, and I guess I've put myself in a lot of strenuous and even traumatic or painful or terrifying situations all my life. I mean,
Well, you didn't really
I think
do
I've
it
been
though.
conditioned. No, that was my parents' fault and life's fault.
But you've been put. You didn't put yourself.
Well, I know the reason why I say my parents' fault is because like my mom was like loves horror movies, and so from young age I was watching terrifying things happen. And I'll tell you, nothing in this reality is as terrifying as some of the things that even live in your own head.
What do you mean?
So, well, some people call these things demons or intrusive thoughts, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Those are often more terrifying than reality.
Is that how the things that you
And
get to when during the period you've been brought up,
well,
or
I know
just through
I
traumas?
learned from a young age how to deal with those things, because I knew that I didn't agree with them and that they're just thoughts. And for when I was younger, it did really bother me before I understood that I am not producing these thoughts, or I am not my thoughts. And I was like, wow, the fact that I have these thoughts or I'm thinking this is just kind of like insane. I'm like 7 years old, and even at 7 years old, I was like, this is not cool. Like, what the fuck? Like, maybe there's something wrong with me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe there is. Who knows? But simple fact of the matter is that when everything like feels like it's like as if like when I feel so insecure, I become ultimately secure.
Yeah, the same pattern with loneliness and solitude, like being unified.
Because in that moment I was in the great alone. So I may not have been consciously aware of how the situation would end, because I didn't know what the fuck was gonna happen. We were out there sitting on the ground for a long time, and I was starting to really worry that they were gonna actually keep us anyway.
So by being
And
in such mayhem, found peace.
yeah, is that there's always peace from within, even in mayhem. And I've had this happen to me many times, not just that. And it's always a very overcalming sense of. That's why the great alone is so powerful, because it doesn't matter what's going on around you, because you're aware of all that is. And even in this moment, things may not be bright, or they seem darker than anything else. That awareness of that this is not the only reality there is, and this is not even an essential reality, will guide you and your being towards, you know, along the path of life that
Yeah,
you are taking.
that's why it's important that to go through and not go around it. Like that's the only way, to go through. Like for example,
Well,
well,
like we said, my friend tried running,
yeah,
and that's trying to get out of it, and he actually got the opposite of freedom.
yeah. But that was a great
And
lesson for him because he learned hopefully from that lesson. And so yeah, so what I mean
Well,
by
it was funny
around.
because we had warned him, don't bring anything with you before we left, also.
Oh yeah. So,
And he
but I
didn't
can't
listen.
help this thing.
No. It was funny, though. He had every opportunity, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is sometimes you have opportunities and you can see them in retrospect and be like, wow, there's a lot of options there. You know? It's not, that's the thing. I was like, there's always a way. There's always the way.
The way, yeah. Or through it, not around. Or inside and outside. But you gotta go around, like,
So
to
I
find
guess
it
like
out.
beating around the bush, you know, how do you know what the whole bush looks like unless you've been around the whole bush? That's and then you say, "Oh, that's the bush." Like I get that. You know, that's how actually my poetry's kind of written.
Mm-hmm.
And how it's not very straight to the point, which you know, that's what water is. You know, the way of water is taking the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And then fire is making the path through burning.
Mm-hmm. So my point with all these why questions I've been asking in the past 10 minutes is like to get to the point which you kind of explained it, of like when we reincarnate we still have this, well, I use the word samsara but I don't think it's the right one.
No, it is
Samskara
samsara.
maybe, no? They are?
Yeah.
Okay, so still don't know how to say that word, but it's the word samsara, right? It's not ska. And this is what we carry with us to not, well, like besides any other components we've been attributed
Oh,
with.
wow, wow, okay. Actually, samsara is the life, death, and rebirth cycle. So that is what suffering is. It is considered painful and unsatisfactory.
So this is where, so to bring this example back to the guy who ran away, is how you learned it, how you learn it, and beside of any other factors we may have, or in our constitution, for example, the fact you've been in this situation intoxicated, brought up with fear till a young age, like what else? Well, the pressure of the situation, and last thing, well, there are more things, but last thing is your autism. Like all these things together played a role, plus your samsara or stuff that you carry around with you, or on like a more subtle body or energy to remind you of like past lives, of the
It's
guidance.
moksha. Moksha is the freedom from suffering in
Okay.
Hindu.
And so
Um,
this body
yeah.
you carry of information that you don't really remember, but that is still like remembered on some level, in terms of, well, that's how the intuition guides you, you know, of when you reincarnate. So my point of all
Well,
this question of why
it's not
is of that.
about not knowing. It's about remembering.
In remembering, you know.
In remembering, you know, but that's only if you understand.
Well, they will really
Because
connect
knowing
it.
is only after karma. You know that that karma worked or did what your intent was. A knowing comes from a tangible, you know, reaction or
Not living
like
wisdom.
if I take, you know, a fucking pen and I stab it in my eye, I know my eye is going to go blind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not happening because I have done it. That would be knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that those two interactions would produce that effect.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah, I'm looking for to grab different questions, but there's a lot that like actually like branch out from this.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess going back to the great alone. So there's okay. Now let's go back. Let's stay here. I mean, with the knowing, understanding, bringing back in the belief and the trust. So how do you define each and the actual intersectionality of them, the connectedness, connection?
Like the connectivity,
No, the connection
like the
of
binding agent,
the what?
the cohesion
Yeah, the cohesion.
between components.
Yeah, this four. Yeah.
Well, that's what we call God.
Okay, so yeah, that is Shiva. That is it.
Well, Shiva is actually just okay. There's a law of Holy Trinity, or the rule of three, and Shiva is one of those three.
Yeah, but
He is
some beings only like actually worship him as just one.
some do, yeah. I mean, there's Brahma, which is the all the creator.
Mm-hmm.
That is like there is like hold on. I'm just looking into it because Brahma is the creator within the Trimurti, which is not even like that's alongside with Vishnu and Shiva. And Vishnu would be the preserver, and Shiva is the destroyer. So the creator is a positive, and Vishnu is a neutral, and then obviously Shiva would be negative. But Brahma is actually refers to Brahman, which is the god. And that is like if you think about it this way, um there is the Om symbol. And in that symbol, you see there is a dot, a line, and a backwards 3 with a squiggle. The backwards 3 with a squiggle represents the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, which that is the Holy Trinity right there. And then the Brahman, or the Om symbol, also includes that awareness of all the subconscious, conscious, and unconscious. But there's the veil in between that. That is the line. So Brahman is the whole of the Om symbol, yet is outside of that too. It's the awareness of that symbol. And is unspeakable. It's ineffable. That God, what you can say about that God is Om. That is the sound that is underlies all things. It is in Christianity it means amen. And in English it means I am, which is in order to have Brahman, you need Atman and you need Atman and Brahman together, which is awareness and then self-awareness. So that's how Brahman is that symbol of the Om. But Atman would just be the awareness. So Brahman's the whole self-awareness of this going on. And together they are the ineffable I and then the M. So when together I am is said, that is God. That is the Om. That is everything that is. And the only thing that God can tell you in this reality is I am, which means I exist. I'm there. That all I can tell you is I'm there. Because nothing else would make sense other than I exist. We're out
So
here.
you said about that Trinity, right? Which is also found in Christianity.
Well, yeah, you can see the Holy Trinity everywhere, like the three primary colors, or even in like computers like RGB, which is red, blue, and green, produce all the pixels on your screen. The Fibonacci sequence follows that pattern of 0, 1, 1, 2, and then 3. How we said last time, LOL, that is, 2 1s and then a 0. So I guess and like Greek mythology, it's Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. You know, I'm trying to think of other ways. Yeah, and like how I acknowledge subconscious, unconscious, and you know. Oh shit! I almost forgot the three major building blocks of the physical reality or form is circle, triangle, and square.
Oh yeah, yeah. In terms of creativity, we've branched off a little bit deep in spirituality in the last episode. That's true.
But what I'm acknowledging in all of these things is that even though you can discern that a one creates the Trinity, or if the Trinity comes from that one or wholeness, and the zero allows for the one, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the Trinity to take place, is that that three is as equally one being as it is three. And you can think about this as ego, id, and superego, or mind, body, spirit, you know, which that is what we are right now, or at least what I'm experiencing is a mind, body, soul comp in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also think about this as peace, war, and you know, the in between that, which
Yeah,
is
the in between. Yeah, really important. So
so. Anyway, I'll let you talk now.
actually, the thing I've asked you before the Trinity is the connections, the cohesions, not of the three, but of the four things I've said before, which are on a mind level of believing, trust, understanding, and knowing. So, in which order would you put them from lowest to highest?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand.
These four elements of the
Mhm.
mind: to believe, to trust, to understand, and to know. With the pen example you gave us,
Mm,
how do
okay.
how do they work together? And
Well, in order to believe is that you have trust in something that you have no evidence for. So like that's like Schrodinger's cat. Like I believe that if I put the cat in a box, the cat will still be there if I there's no way to I guess know that when you put the cat in the box it doesn't just disappear and then when you open it it's just there again. Because then that's when faith comes in is you have faith that all that is not happening because why would the cat just disappear because you're not looking at it? Understanding would be that there's physics and laws to reality that are abided by, uh, you know, they're essentially essential functioning and processes that are undergone that would make it nearly impossible, not impossible because nothing is impossible, that the cat is disappearing.
so that's it. The four elements. How do you apply them to the in between we've been talking about?
Well,
Of going through and inside.
I understand that there's other components that I am interacting with that, you know, may not understand that we're all alone together. And in that, I trust that they are coming to their own conclusions and following their own path in life, which they follow faith. And that faith is what allows me to give space to that and say, well, I don't know any better than anyone else does about anything. That faith is telling me that everyone, every single one, or every component is doing simply what is natural, you know, to them. And I truly believe that that is what will bring us all together in the end. Amen to Brahman, bro.